Absolutely. All right. Speaking of Virginia, good segue, Pat. Virginia goes on the road, gets a victory against Syracuse. Another close call for the Orange, you could say. They've had a couple chances in the last week that they've been on the losing end of for a big resume booster. The Orange are now 13-10 on the season. They certainly had their chances to win this game. And then, after the game, another moment at the press conference for Jim Boeheim. That seems to be becoming a more frequent thing. We had a student reporter tonight ask about where was Benny Williams. He was not with the team tonight. Boeheim did not like that question, made that very clear immediately from his response. McCall, I'd like to throw it to you first here, just from a coaching side of things. Obviously, it can be hard to get in front of a camera right after a
Yeah.
loss, let alone one that you should have won potentially. But how surprised are you at the comments and the way that Boeheim is sort of handling these questions?
Well, hopefully, and I know we don't, but do we have all the information? Has something else happened that has upset him with media members in that media circle, right up there in Syracuse? But to see it, anytime the game is so emotional, we put so much into it as coaches, into the preparation and all this. And when you lose a game, you're emotional right after the game. You kind of got to walk through those press conferences and take a deep breath and understand, hey, there's a camera on me. And I just kind of look at his situation right now, and it's like, man, Coach Boeheim has won a gazillion games. He's a Hall of Famer. He's won a national championship. He's gonna go down as Syracuse best. His name is on the floor. Like, think about that. Like, every game he walks out into that arena, his name is on the floor. And to see a situation like that, it's just kind of like, is there other things going on? Is his frustration building up, and is this the end for him? And you want to see him go out on a positive note. He's not going to coach forever. Nobody can. And that's what I just feel like. It just looks like he's getting very, very frustrated at the end of his career. And you don't want to see that. Not for a legend that's, always done it, and then done it at a high level, and done it his way. Right. I mean, that 2-3 zone, he is stuck with it throughout his entire career. And give Virginia credit in that game too, because as late as they got in the shot clock, and I know that's their style of play and the things that they do, they never panicked against that zone. They let actions develop. They kept the ball moving. They kept hopping it around. But I just think it's kind of unfortunate for Coach Boeheim. And again, we don't know everything that's going on within that media base. As someone else made a comment that has frustrated him, kind of behind the scenes. But you're a legend. I just feel like looking at him in that situation, he just seems really, really frustrated. And maybe it's frustrated with his team. Maybe it's frustrated with the media. But man, your name's on the floor. You're a Hall of Famer. Finish this thing the right way, and enjoy your legacy.
Yeah, you just don't want to go out, and I've never coached, I've never been in his position, but I just know from what I've seen, I think even about like Dan Mullen as he was on his way out from Florida, you just don't want to go out with a bad taste in the mouth of the fans and in your experience. Understanding that, yeah, we want you to win. You want to win. You put everything into this. The people love you. We've all been a part of having tough games or questions that we don't want to answer, but there's always grace that you can allow, even if the situation if it's a quick response to something, because then he ends up creating. We're talking about this now, just how he handled that.
No question.
Yeah, so a little disappointing to see that, because I understand he wants to probably go out and do things better. But I'm trying to think, who was the women's basketball coach? Gary Blair, that retired last year. He didn't have a great season, and he's been there for 30 years. And you want to talk about just class, with how even in his press conference he's crying, saying, "Oh, I wish I could have done it better with my team, because we didn't do it this year." And man, nothing but great respect for the way that he's done. I'm not saying that there's not the same thing for Coach Boeheim, but this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, and people have talked about it, and just don't like to see someone on that professional level and achieve, as you said, Coach McCall, achieve what he's achieved and handle himself like this right now.
Not
Yeah,
to
it's one of
mention, Greg,
those-
they had chances. They were 3
Right.
for 15 from the 3-point line. They go 11 for 18 from the foul line. They should have won the game.
Right.
You know, they should
You
have
gotta
won
be
the
kidding
game.
me that
They should have
Texas
won the
Tech
game.
up right now.
Yeah, series of mistakes, you could say, down the stretch for Syracuse. And yes, as Pat alludes, Texas Tech has taken a 3-point lead with 19 seconds left to play. We are going to get to that in the next block here. Just to wrap up the Boeheim quotes, or whatever you want to call it here. To me, you can never, like, if you handle a press conference tremendously, unless it's the final game of your career, there's something super special, super emotional about the spot. You don't make headlines in a press conference if you are respectful and are very kind and say the right things. You make headlines if you say something wrong, if you're a little bit rude, if you're snippy, whatever the situation is. Now, I've never been in that spot. I've never been in a high pressure situation. So I can't sit here and look the camera in the eye and say, it's easy to just treat people with respect. But it's not the hardest thing to do, especially to a student reporter, in my opinion, which I thought it was a totally fair question tonight. I mean, Benny Williams was not out there tonight to lead a post game with that question from the media side. Was absolutely fair game. I thought the reporter did a fine job wording it that way. And Boeheim just didn't like the question. So we'll see. This now, I believe, is 2 straight post games where there's been at least some sort of viral clip of Jim Boeheim. This is a talented Syracuse team that certainly in the mix to potentially make the NCAA tournament, but they have work